Free roam. That's our new intro song, guys. How you doing? I think it's good.
Wow.
Yeah, I think
That's
it's
pretty good.
I think we'll keep it. How are you doing, Mr. Jor Raptor?
I was doing very well. Wait, I got the stream on somewhere else, so I'm hearing echoes. But now it's fine. Now I'm back. Hello.
You're hearing
No,
a
I'm doing
fantastic
well until yesterday.
Oh no.
I saw it. The abomination that is the
No, you
Borderlands
did.
movie.
You did. Oh no.
I got invited by independent films, and that's weird. Like for people who are now I'm outside a few. Wait.
Oh, it's okay. I can move it.
Oh, that's maybe better. Wait. Because I'm like trying to dodge these bars as if I'm like in jail or something. It is better. So yeah, I watched it. We were invited, and I was like, yeah, I know this is gonna be really bad. But then I was like, oh, maybe we can do like a team event. So Joyce and Dennis go as well. We eat something before we go to the movies. Have it a fun get together, and then cry in the cinema. And that is what happened. And I mean, if you watch the trailers, maybe some people are like, what, the Borderlands movie, is it out? Because there has been some marketing, but it's been kind of flying under the radar. But yeah, this all you have to know. Don't go. It was really bad. It's like going back in time to when movies based on games were really bad. With like they're not looking at the source material at all. It's basically like my best description is they are kind of afraid, or they are like, okay, we did not really engage with the Borderlands franchise at first. We were just like going to make this like a property people know, but then all the things that actually make Borderlands fun, they don't really include it. So where are the crazy weapons? That's like one of the biggest things from the Borderlands movies, not in this movie. She uses like one of the legendaries that is like the Infinity Pistol, and I was waiting for her to reload it, because that's kind of the thing with the Infinity Pistol, that it has like infinite ammo. So I was walking outside of the cinema, and then I was like talking to Joyce and Dennis, and then some other guy was like, I saw her reload the Infinity Pistol, and I was like, oh my god. So basically, it's really bad, and especially watching Fallout this year, Last of Us last year, right? It's crazy.
I mean, the news I saw about it was that Borderlands the movie debuts with a 0% Metacritic or a Rotten Tomatoes score. Like literally not a single critic liked it. And then after that, it's gotten a couple more positive reviews. So now, as of this moment, it is up to, let's see, 31. Screen Rant actually gave it a 7 out of 10. They said Blanchett knows exactly what movie she's in, and she seems to be having the time of her life, fitting herself into the mold of a video game heroine. Maybe they just really like Kate Blanchett. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
But I mean, pretty much everybody, like the independent, wildly miscast actors and an impenetrable script make this long-delayed actioner alienating to fans of the game and incomprehensible to the casual viewer. I mean, I don't think anybody's surprised. The trailers looked dreadful. And yeah. I mean, they delayed it a bunch. I imagine this was like a Suicide Squad thing where they just kept delaying it, re-editing it, trying to get it to screen better and test better for audiences. But it's just,
you can't polish a turd, as we've seen many times.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of people also were like, respectfully, I don't think anybody really asked for this. Like, Borderlands is not, like, it's not known for really intense gripping narratives. Some people might like the stories, sure, but generally it's known for like the gameplay or the vast array, as you alluded to, of weapons and things. The fact that it's just fun to play when you pop an edible on a Saturday afternoon. Like, that's why it's popular, not because they cast.
It still has a unique sort of world. Like the vehicles are very, like, you immediately know, oh, that's Borderlands. Of course, the psychos in, like, I still think they could have made a very interesting world. Or like similar to Fallout. Obviously, Fallout has a bit more going for it, and the stories are always better in that game. But I still think it has enough unique touches that really make it stand out that they could have like used to make this a cool thing. But they're just ashamed of the game, and they're trying to be make it something that it's not. They're changing the lore. It's super weird, and it's like an hour and a half, and nothing like big happens. The ending is also like pretty abrupt, and it's like if you don't know the game, then you don't really know certain things like are not explained. But they are trying to make this movie mostly for people that never played the Borderlands game, so there are really weird choices. Claptrap, like that's a very fun character, and it does hit sometimes, and Jack Black does a fine job, but I still think like they wasted 80% of their budget probably on all these actors, while you could have gone for a random claptrap voice actor, would still be fine.
Yeah.
Or hire the person who actually does it in the game. Like that would have been great too, because they still like you hear that it's Jack Black, but if you don't know, you don't hear it either.
Yeah, and
so
I think it's made with this sort of, at least in my opinion, outdated approach to films where like back in the 80s and 90s, yeah, if you had a movie star leading the film, it would probably have a much better chance of performing well. Whereas now, like people find out that The Rock is in another movie, it might do well, it might not, but it doesn't really dictate the overall performance of the movie nowadays. Like there just aren't that many people, I think, that decide to go. Like I wasn't going to go see Borderlands, but Kate Blanchett's in it, so I guess I gotta go. There's very rare exceptions to that. Like I'm trying to think of actors where if I knew they were in a movie, I would immediately jump on it. But even then, it's like specific. It's like Johnny Depp going back to Pirates of the Caribbean. Yeah, I'm watching that. If he's not in the next Pirates of the Caribbean, I'm probably not watching it. But if I find out Johnny Depp is doing like that really artsy fartsy movie about a French king, I'm like, sounds interesting. I don't speak French, so I probably won't see it. But okay, like I appreciate the thought, you know?
Yeah, I get it. There are people like that though that have that sort of fandom. Like my aunt loves Liam Neeson, so she goes to all the bad
his voice
rip-offs,
like audible chocolate melts in my ear.
So I don't know. That's like a bad choice for her. But yeah, she goes to like I don't know how he still does it, because he's in one of these Taken rip-offs every year. It feels like Thief. Or like Honest Thief or something. Like they really throw it at ChatGPT, and Liam Neeson is like in a new movie.
That's the thing
and
though,
is it every year.
It just prints money. I know, like for example, what's his name? Bruce something. He did Die Hard. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
He got a lot of crap like late 2000s, early 2010s for doing just any Bruce Willis. For just doing any movie that came across his desk. Like they brought him any sort of weird obscure script and he would just do it. And now he has like, I don't know what the exact disease is, but basically he has dementia and he's not able to memorize lines, or he's not very functional now. And so it seems like he was doing all of these films to just get the bag before he couldn't get the bag anymore. And then he could distribute those funds to like his friends and family and pass it on. But he's like, hey, I've only got 5 more movies in me. Let's just do them as quick as we can and get the payday. I can't really fault somebody for doing that, especially if you're like a Liam Neeson, who's like, you're not exactly the action hero age you were before. I don't really blame you. You know, I know people might give him crap for doing knockoff movies, but it's like, hey, as long as he's getting his bag,
yeah,
good for him. You know,
he's pretty old, right? Like at one point,
he's got to be 60s, like late 60s.
1952.
Yeah. Oh wow. So
Yeah.
he's 72. Is that right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Wow. Okay. Well, who knew? Anyway.
Okay, that's a bit off topic. Let's do one thing. We got like a super chat here. Thank you, 53 Nights. It's a very good question. Yor, when is your 8-hour review of College Football 25 coming?
I'm also
Well,
interested.
I'm playing it. Yeah, I'm playing it right now, and I don't think I can play the game for 8 hours because I don't like any of this. So let alone make an 8-hour video. So I think I'm gonna save this time for when Concord releases and do a 8-hour review of Concord
Naturally.
because it seems to be coming out.
I know, right, dude?
I still can't believe it. I still don't believe. But they said it yesterday that they were counting down, and I was like, "Did the meeting not happen yet?" It's Herman asleep. It's Herman on a holiday break. That would have been fun, right? Where he's like gone for 3 weeks, so he did not get this updated stats from the Concord beta.
That would make more
And
sense than them releasing it, honestly. Like, and their social media accounts are very, very active. They are still posting all sorts of little character highlight reels. So, like this one, if you're listening, it's just for Amari, which is the big green marshmallow tank. And
Wow.
I don't know, it's
Amazing.
sort of like a hybrid of, I don't even know who to compare it to, because she has a shield like Reinhard, but
Does anyone care?
a minigun. Yeah, does anyone care? That's a good question. Anyway, so like they're still posting these character highlights and stuff, and the posts get 300 likes, 200 likes here or there. You take out the employees of the studio who are probably required to like it, and you're at like 200 players. Again, like I just, maybe they have only 1,000 players on PC, but they have 15 or 20,000 on PlayStation. That's the only thing I can think of that would justify them moving forward. Like, there's got to be something we don't see. Or, as some people alluded to in chat yesterday on stream, people were like, it seems like they're just going to take the tax write-off. They're just going to be like, oh, well, it's a loss.
Yeah, or maybe they are thinking about what happened with Helldivers, because there was not a lot of like word of mouth for Helldivers before launch as well. When it came out, it actually wasn't that popular, and I don't know. Like at one point that shifted, right? At one point it was like, whoa, oh, everyone is talking about Concord or Helldivers 2 in that case. So maybe they're like, yeah, we've been here before. Let's just go with the flow and let's do it.
Yeah, maybe.
But
I think. Oh, I was just
Yeah.
going to say with Helldivers, I think it was just that Helldivers was an unknown quantity. Once people found out about it and the word of mouth traveled, once people tried it for the first time, it blew up. The problem for Concord is people did try it and then they stopped trying it because they were bored.
Yeah.
And I see somebody in chat, John I'm sorry. But John says, for Concord, they made some clarifications on the game, like there won't be battle pass. Do you think that'll make a difference? And you're right. I'll pull it up on screen here for people watching. But basically what they did is they went on their social media and they clarified for everybody that they have all of these additional little tidbits. And one of the things that they shared, for example, is Battle Pass. Concord does not have a Battle Pass. We want to focus our attention on making Concord a rewarding and robust experience on day one, blah, blah, blah. Post-launch content, launch is just the beginning. We'll be introducing new free runners, maps, and modes. Will there be more in-game cinematics? Hell yeah. Free runner variants, all sorts of different ones. This one, which is baffling, will the game have a lever penalty system? And they said they are working on it, which seems insane that they didn't have one. But it's like Joel Raptor mentioned a few times when we talked about this a few weeks ago. That's a system, like having a penalty for leaving a match early, that is so obvious if real human beings are playing the game and if real people are playing it. Whereas if you're just testing it internally in the studio, it's probably not a common thing that comes up. You're not going to have John from programming bail on the match in the middle of it while you're testing stuff. It's just one of those like, oh God, we forgot to do that. Like they just spaced it apparently, which is unbelievable.
And one more thing about the Battle Pass, and sorry for people who are listening every week or like, why are they talking about this game
Please stop.
nobody will play? But one more thing, like, I think it's like a nice thing that sets it apart, but I do think that there is a reason why these games do Battle Passes, that even if people say, I don't like it, they still have the stats where they probably are seeing, sure, people say they don't like it, but it is a really, like, the moment you are locked in with that Battle Pass for the season, you feel inclined to kind of work towards that. And with Concord not having it, like, sure, sounds nice, but that does mean that if you're not invested at one point, you're not pushed to maybe come back for next season for cool new stuff, or like want to maybe stick around a bit longer because you're close to that battle pass reward. So maybe it's like a fun idea, but I do think there's a reason why every live service game has adopted the battle pass system, and even games like Assassin's Creed are seemingly moving in that direction. That's Ubisoft probably looking at their other titles being like, whoa, this really helps our player engagement. Let's put it in other games. So I think it's an interesting...
There's so much data involved with this stuff, and I don't think people really understand just how much back-end analysis is going on with all of these games, with the pricing models, with player engagement based on different feature sets. So for example, we did a story on on the live channel a couple of weeks ago, where we looked at something that Activision released, which is, I'll put it up on screen here, but it's an article on the matchmaking and how they actually tested turning off skill-based matchmaking without telling anybody. So they were like, we're not going to tell you we're turning it off. We're just going to turn it off for select players and see how they respond and how they react. And do they play the game more? Do they rate the matches they play higher? Do they seem to have more fun? They can test all of this stuff. So the paper goes into all of this with how the algorithms work to determine win rates versus team skill differences, and then how they calculate matching all of those, treatment percentage differences based on the skill bucket you're in, like crazy levels of detail and data. And they go through all of it. And basically at the end of it, they're able to conclude, no, when we turned it off, people played for less, they didn't have as much fun, and our total player counts dropped precipitously very quickly. And that's because they have all of this back-end data. And with battle passes and all of the monetization stuff where money is on the line directly, you better believe they're doing the same thing. Like, they're testing all sorts of stuff. People are like
10 times as much.
People are like, how the hell could Overwatch do a $40 skin for Reinhardt for a new axe, a mythic axe or whatever? It's like, well, because lots of people are grinding for it and buying it. It's as simple as that. Like, it makes money, so they do it. And people might rage against microtransactions or paid cosmetics in games, but these companies do it because people buy them.
Yeah, and the skill-based matchmaking was another thing where people were against it, but the vocal minority, or people think they're against it, but they actually like it. And that's of course with many things, that people will say one thing, but they don't really know that they actually want the other thing.
Yeah, it's like, you know what it's like? It's like with my toddler, little Lachlan. He's an adorable little fella. He is convinced that the only kind of chicken he likes are like chicken nuggets or chicken fingers, that type of thing, like basically fried. I made some chicken thighs on the smoker the other day or yesterday, and delicious, amazing chicken, if I do say so myself. But we're like, you're gonna like this, Lockie, just eat some of the chicken. And he's like, I don't like it. And then he's been watching Bluey. He says, I can't, in an Australian accent, which is funny. But he's like, I can't. So finally, I was like, okay, look. And I went over to like pretend like I was doing something with the chicken. And I come back and I'm like, okay, I got you a chicken nugget instead. And then I fed it to him and he's like, I like it. And it's like, yes, because you like it. You think you don't, but you do. It's just you've convinced yourself that you don't like it, and you just don't want to consider that you could be wrong. And so they just refuse to deal with it. But that's why like this paper is so funny, because when this paper dropped, people were like, well, I still think they should get rid of it because, I probably wasn't in this test group. They probably altered the data. And it's like, it's unbelievable. But anyway. Yeah, okay. I'm basically saying Call of Duty fans are like toddlers, I guess.
Hey, thanks everyone for joining the live service cast. Now we're going to talk about free roam open world games. We got another super chat. Samaya, gentlemen, how do we think Black Myth Wukong, Star Wars Outlaws in the same window would do against each other? I think Talking about sales here, we got some input here. Outsider Jess saying Outlaws will sell extremely well, but Wukong might get received better. Outlaws will destroy Black Myth, says Norcat. Interesting. What do you think?
It's funny. Norcat is like one of my favorite chatters to watch in chat because he's our resident troll. So pretty much anything he says, he means the opposite. But every single time,
I did not know that.
Yeah, every single time people in chat bite at the bait and are like, "Well, actually," it's so funny to me. But anyway, with that having been said, I kind of agree with Jess's initial perception. I think that Overwatch very possibly sells better per unit.
Over
like
Outlaws.
Total units, or Outlaws sells more
live
units.
Service cast. Yeah,
so
I
many.
get it.
I think that Outlaws probably sells more units. Does that mean it's more profitable? Not necessarily, as we've discussed previously with how expensive these games are and Disney taking a cut. But I think Black Myth almost 1,000%. I mean, it's almost completely certain. I think Black Myth will review better. I'm expecting Star Wars to probably land in like that, probably somewhere between 78 and 85 range on Metacritic, depending on how they polish it up. Whereas Black Myth, I think the people that choose to play that, knowing what they're getting into, are going to be much more likely to rate it 85 and up. I don't think it'll be like a 10 out of 10. I think it's probably like high 80s would be my guess. But I think Black Myth critically much better received, but Outlaws, I mean, people, it's Star Wars. Like every granny that goes into the supermarket or goes into Best Buy to buy their grandson a gift is going to see Star Wars. And by that, they're going to see Black Myth and be like, okay. And they're just going to move on. So I think that long-term tail on Star Wars Outlaws is going to really drive numbers up. And maybe that's an important question is, are we talking the first week or are we talking 6 months or a year? Because I think Star Wars will have a lot longer tail on it.
Yeah, and knowing Ubisoft, it will probably be $30 come Christmas. So you can probably wait. But I think Black Myth is not even physically available at launch, like only digital, I think. But yeah, I think it's interesting. Like looking at YouTube views, like I think a lot of people are interested in Outlaws, like they want it to be good. So I think if the game really gets higher praise. Because we talked about it, of course, in last week's episode, our impressions. And for me, I still need to see it come together. We've played like certain slices, but if the game really is what we had from one of our interviews where the game director said, okay, so you have this opening level, every Ubisoft game, of course, has this tutorial planet where you go to. Also, you can install the game. You get the first part like after 10 gigs. Then it will install the rest. So you can already play a certain part and then have it install in the background. And that's probably like the tutorial level for Outlaws. Then you go to that brand new planet that they made where we started our play session. And then after that, they said that you should be free to go anywhere you want. And that sounds very exciting to me. And we just have not experienced that yet. If that will really feel like what they said, quote unquote, galaxy full of possibilities, or if you're still kind of on this linear path. So if they really nail that, and if I can go to this planet, walk around a bit, do some missions, go in my ship again to another planet, do some missions there. Okay, now I want to. If I really get the sense that I'm like immersed in this huge world, I do think it could work really, really well. But we just haven't seen that yet. So I think a lot of people want to like Outlaws, but if it is in that 77 range, I do think a lot of people will wait until there's a sale, but maybe pick it up at some point. Black Myth, though, if you're looking also at the amount of YouTube, like it is reaching mainstream in an interesting way where it has been, like I see a lot of, every trailer they drop on IGN gets like 1 million views. Like there are a lot of people that have been anticipating this game for a really long time, and it's suddenly here. It kind of feels like it's August 20th. They just dropped a new trailer yesterday, which I think is already at 500,000 views as well. So, like, they really got something going. But also for that game, it's really, okay, sure, people played it. Is it gonna deliver? Because it's not this known entity, right, in terms of developer. So, I really think Black Myth has the potential to maybe not Elden Ring level, but to reach that mainstream where, I mean, I think it's a very easy game to sell. It's like, it looks stunning, it plays very well from what I played, and you don't really, it's a new IP which works, and yeah, I see the potential being there to maybe outsell Outlaws, where I think Outlaws will have a certain ceiling, especially if it is as not mediocre, but as like good 7 out of 10 as right now I'm kind of leaning towards. And I still think it's wild. Like sometimes I think about, why did Ubisoft just not make a Mandalorian game? They would have easily sold more than 5 million, more easily sold more 5 million units of this game. Like they are the way they chose to handle this game feels kind of like an uphill battle with the amount of budget that they're throwing against it. While this could have been a super easy win to actually give people what they wanted.
I would just counter that with, there was a Mandalorian game in production that was canceled. So it's probably like they might have pitched that, but they might have been told, well, we already greenlit a Mandalorian game, so
yeah, at Respawn.
You gotta do something
it was
else.
first person though, so but still, yeah, that might be it. Might totally be it. But it is like I don't know. It feels like this could have been a way easier win. Right now, like why are we here discussing if this game is gonna do well when it is a Star Wars game, right?
Yeah.
Like it should have been like an easy win.
Well, and I keep trying, because I agree. Like it feels like so often it's like, okay, Ubisoft, you've got a layup here. You've got Star Wars and one of your best teams with massive, of passionate fans of Star Wars and very talented developers. And Ubisoft's like, interesting. Okay, well, let me just get my foot and blow a hole in it. It's so infuriating because it's like, you guys could just, like, it's right there. Just dunk the ball. You're good to go. And they just kind of refused to make their lives easy. And so I agree. I think they could have figured this out much. They could have approached this in a much easier way. But it's the same story with like AC Shadows, where it's like I think they knew that they were inviting controversy with like Yasuke instead of just having a samurai, like a fictional samurai or something. And so at some point you stop feeling bad. It's like, you guys kind of did this to yourselves, you're trying to like, I don't know if it's trying too hard or what it is, but I think it's also important for us to try and look at these things from outside of our bubble, because we live and breathe video games, but to the average consumer who just wants to hop on and play a game in August, like, what is their casual appeal? I know Black Myth is getting really good views and stuff, and I totally agree with that. But I just have to think that the Star Wars franchise has a good amount of carrying weight. Like, I have to think with casual gamers that pulls some extra.
But Jedi, but isn't it like Jedi raises also the amount of money, or like I mean, you see it with the Disney Plus shows as well, right? If it has a lightsaber in it, more people watch it.
Mm-hmm.
Although like Mandalorian is of course a counter to that, but that really was the word of mouth. But I think the other like more Jedi focused TV shows have done better than, say, I always call it Rogue One, but it's like not the called
Solo.
The one that was actually
the bad one.
No, that was the movie. I mean the Disney Plus show. The
Andor, really somebody saying?
Yeah, Andor. Yeah, exactly, Eddie. Thanks. I think that also didn't, like, not a lot of people gave that a shot, while that was like actually really good. I'm curious. I think, and that's what we really seen this year in particular, is games where people just don't know really what they're going to get, or that bring a brand new experience, are doing super well. Palworld, Helldivers 2, like these games, and Baldur's Gate 3 last year, like, sure, they like, that was for a lot of people their first type of experience like that. And I really think that everyone knows what Outlaws is gonna play like, feel like, be like. While Black Myth, sure, there are many games like it, but it is in a very interesting setting that not anyone has ever experienced in a way like this. So I do think that has it. It will be fascinating to watch, but I think people underestimating Wukong. I don't know. I think this year has really shown that the new type of experiences, like the new IP, are actually doing better than the known quantities.
I think people just also are so frustrated with stuff that's been out there for a while, and they just are looking for something exciting. Like, it's the whole generation so far, at least from my perspective, has been painfully predictable and just not that exciting. Like, every time we hit E3 or the Game Awards, you're hoping for some like wow announcement, and there just really are not very many. You might get one where you're like, oh, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, yay. But in years past, it was like, yeah, and then they also drop a trailer for this game. What is this game? Oh, it's Last of Us Part 2. Oh, God. Or they announced in 2018, or I think it was 2016, they announced God of War, this total reboot, and it's so thrilling and exciting. And then this year, or this generation, there just really has not been anything. It's just stuff that was announced right at the outset of the generation, and nothing else. And so I think getting something that's different is certainly much better, as Tristan references in chat. I think that's a better high than doing the same thing you've been doing, just with a different coat of paint. So
exactly. So it will be interesting to watch, but I think both games will do well. I'm just not convinced that when Ubisoft started the Star Wars Outlaws sort of journey, that they are happy with what it is. Like, I think they maybe expected more also from Avatar, that has not sold very well. Of course, Star Wars way bigger, but still, you would have think that it was like a slam dunk. But I think the game will, in the MPD, so the top 10 best-selling games of the US, if it reaches the top 5, I might be surprised, actually. Or no, there have not been a lot of other games. Shadows will be top 5. Black Ops 6 will be top 5. Helldivers 2. That leaves 2 spots.
Palworld?
Outlaws was, yeah.
Palworld was
I'm
huge.
not sure Palworld is in the MPD, if they track it. But yeah, I think the game will do fine, but maybe not as... It's not like this. When Jedi Fallen Order came out, that was like... And I'm not seeing that same hype.
Yeah, I agree. But that's a good question, Samaya. And then before we get back into the rest of it, thank you to Xavier for another super chat, and asking for mods to jump on chat. I'm trying to see if we have some of our mods in here. We'll move on to the next topic, and I'll work on getting some of the mods mobilized. Don't you worry. Thank you for the super chat, my friend. Jor, what's our next topic?
Well, it's the title of this stream, at least. So Warner Bros. Games. I think they're always fascinating, right? They basically skipped a whole generation, the lost generation, because we had the Dark Knight, Arkham Knight, and that I think was. Then they did like Batman Arkham VR for PSVR, but they were kind of quiet. Shadow of War, was that like the final title they did? They had like this quiet period where we were like, okay, what are all these teams doing? And then at one point during DC Vendome in 2020, they were like, Gotham Knights, Rocksteady is back, Suicide Squad. During the PlayStation 5 reveal event, Hogwarts Legacy. So we're like, okay, they're back, Warner Bros. Nice to see. But these games have now all been released, and only Hogwarts Legacy has really made insane bank looking at the franchise they have. Like, you would expect the Batman game in the form of a Gotham Knights or a Suicide Squad. Obviously, had some misses, but both movies still did very well. Of course, a huge franchise to do better than what they did. So right now, maybe you can talk more about like Warner Bros. As a whole, but like going over the gaming division here. Basically, their gaming revenue for the second quarter of this year, so of course April, May, and June, is 41% down versus last year, and Hogwarts Legacy came out in February, so last year did not even have the launch of Hogwarts Legacy, and this year had the return of Multiverses. Still, revenue is down, and they are pointing to Suicide Squad. Like, they were expecting more from Suicide Squad in this quarter, and overall they have been saying, yeah, we lost basically. I mean, it's of course like there's more going on than that, but they have been pointing to like a 200 million loss on that game. And yeah, right now they're looking into the future and are like, okay, what are we going to do? Because we have these huge franchises, but we only have a couple of studios that are making these games. But yeah, maybe we should look elsewhere. But that's kind of a tease for what they might plan. I think that will be an interesting discussion. But do you want to like tackle this in another direction and look at maybe Warner Bros. As a whole, or
Sure.
their gaming their vision?
Sure. So Warner Brothers Discovery is the big name. They have had some troubles recently. That's no mystery to anybody. The gaming division is part of their business, but it's like not anywhere close to their main business. Most of their business comes from TV and like some films and stuff like that. They own a lot of IP that are very, very valuable. I mean, just most obviously, they own like, DC, they have that, and they own Harry Potter. They have access to that, licensing deals for that through J.K. Rowling. So they are a huge powerhouse in terms of the IP they own, but in terms of actual financials, not so great. So if I pull up their actual stock summary, you can see kind of a breakdown of how this works. Now, right now, as of today, they're trading at $7 a share, which, depending on how many times the stock has been split, doesn't tell you a whole lot. A lot of people might initially be like, oh, well, but this stock is $100 a share. It doesn't matter. It depends on how many shares are out there. When you take total shares multiplied by the price, you get what's known as the market cap, which is this number down here, which is sitting at 17.16 billion as of right now. That means if you were to buy every outstanding tradable share of stock, you'd own the business, assuming there aren't a lot of like private Class A shares or something. And so therefore the business is worth $17-ish billion. Now, I would argue the business is probably worth more than that. Warner Brothers Discovery is probably worth more like 25 to 30 billion. Not because I think the stock is unfairly priced right now, but simply because they have what are known as intangible assets, which would be something like IP ownership. For a company like, say, Xbox or PlayStation to own the rights to make Harry Potter games, that is worth a lot of money long term, but that's not really something that you can quantify on a spreadsheet or something. A great example of why it's not easy to quantify on a spreadsheet or something is because sometimes they make oopsies in how they guesstimate the worth of these things. So for example, this story just broke yesterday. Quote, Warner Brothers Discovery says its TV channels are worth $9 billion less than they originally thought, leading to a net loss of $10 billion in the second quarter of 2024. So basically what happened is that back in 2021, when they did a merger, they guesstimated that their TV channels and everything they had was worth, say, $10 billion. And now they're reevaluating it. And they're like, oh, it's not making any money. We lost access to the NBA games. So actually it's worth like $1 billion. So they lose $9 billion worth of value, even though that wasn't like cash on in their accounts. They estimated it was worth that, and that's what they had on their books, which again is a big oopsie. Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav said on Wednesday's earning call that market valuations just 2 years ago, again, we're not talking about they estimated this a decade ago, 2 years ago, when they first merged in April of 22, said, quote, "We're quite different than they are today. And doing this, quote, acknowledges that change in our value and, quote, better aligns them with their goals moving forward. And the CEO, Gunnar Weidenfels, said he's not dismissive of the magnitude of the impairment, but this represents the value shift towards streaming, which the company still believes has strong momentum. Basically, when they lost the rights to broadcast NBA games at the end of, or at the beginning, rather after next season, they like their TV channels are now basically worth nothing. They have HBO Max, but HBO Max also loses a ton of money. So all told, it's just mistake after mistake after incompetent move after incompetent move. And now the stock has plummeted to all-time lows. And there's also reports coming out that Warner Brothers is, of course, looking at potentially selling off or licensing out IP for other studios to make games with. And this might remind you of what Disney did back in the 2010-ish era, where they had a lot of studios. They had Lucasfilm Games. They had a lot of studios under their helm, and then they licensed out their IP and shut down all those studios because the new CEO came in after Michael Eisner, and Bob Iger came in, and Bob Iger was like, we don't want to make games. That seems like a headache. So he shut down all their studios and then licensed IP to studios like EA to make games for them. And we all kind of know how that's gone. So they're looking at licensing IP to other developers and stuff. What this would likely take the form of is somebody like Xbox would come in and buy the rights to make Batman games, or just buy the rights to the franchise, basically. Whether that's licensed for 10 years or 20 years or whatever is still up in the air. But the reason people are like, why would they do this? They just had Hogwarts Legacy, which was huge. It's kind of like our discussion of Bungie. And if you're listening, you won't be able to see this on screen, but I'll just draw this out. Basically, if you have a break-even point, which is a black line in the middle of the graph, and then you have a red line, which is all the losses you've been accruing with $200 million losses and then misvaluating these things, you could have a really successful Hogwarts Legacy that shoots up, but you're still losing money. It doesn't get rid of all of this crap that you lost because you had one success. You needed 10 successes to dig yourself out of the hole. And, you know, if you're in a 10-foot deep pit and then someone tosses down a ladder that's 2 feet long, you're like, thanks, I need more than this. And that's where Warner Brothers is now. So they had Hogwarts Legacy, but they need a lot more than that to justify the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars that they've poured into this. So they might license it out for some easy cash. They might straight up sell off their games division, which has been rumored for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I think now that the Activision Blizzard King deal has closed, you could see Microsoft entertain it. Because ballpark, like the rights to the video game business, especially if they're licensing and not buying it, monetarily not that big of a deal. And whether or not the FTC has grounds to step in and stop a licensing deal, that is something in the US that's much more flimsy, because it's not really monopolistic. They're just getting IP rights for a set period of time. So we'll see. What do you think of all of this, Jor?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting, but we know what the deals are, like looking at Spider-Man 2 and what Marvel is asking for basically giving them the Spider-Man license. Like, they're making a ton of... Sure, it's not free because they're still hands-on with the project. They're still, giving, like, their expertise and all that sort of stuff. But I think it was like something like 30% of all the money that game made is going in Marvel's pockets, while they are not developing it at all. So for Warner, this would be pretty huge, of course, and that would also, like, it's kind of a win-win for them, because one of the things that was also said is how what they are kind of seeing is that we will create a movie, whether it's Batman or Superman or Harry Potter. Maybe there will be a TV show, so they will handle that as well. But the ability to go into that world and have that experience spending time with all the characters is something that we still own. Like, basically, that is something that he sees like a lot of, and that was like what Microsoft was saying as well, right? Fallout TV show did very well. People wanted to play those games too. And Amazon was looking at that and they were like, okay, very nice that the Amazon Fallout TV show is doing very well, but we're not seeing any of the money that people then spent on Fallout games. So that's why for The Lord of the Rings and Tomb Raider, they want to own everything. They want to be like, okay, we're making the Tomb Raider TV show and we're making the new game with Crystal Dynamics. For Lord of the Rings, they're also, of course, doing the TV show and they will make a new game. But I think Warner is in such a situation where they possibly cannot keep up with, also releasing these games on time. So licensing that out, still making a very, very good amount of money on the games that they're not making themselves could be very big. And I think looking at Marvel, like, they kind of nailed it. We did see a lot of... We have not seen a lot... Like, even Guardians of the Galaxy, that did not make a lot of money, was still a fun game. And Spider-Man was, of course, super successful. We now see Marvel Rivals. That is seemingly on the right track. I think it was even, like, the 10th most played game in July. Or, like, in the week where the open beta was, or the closed beta even, on Steam. It was, like, in the top 10 most played games on PC, which is kind of huge. So, I mean, that game would have never been made if, like, Marvel does not own a studio that can make an Overwatch-style game. But they shopped around, of course, the Dishonored team making Blade. So it just means that there will be more games, made with these franchises. Black Panther, Iron Man, EA is making those. So I think it would be good for us as well to have a proper Batman game again, and we don't have to wait for Rocksteady to maybe at one point do that. And is Rocksteady still the same? Like, is there not a way cooler studio that could take on that license and do something maybe new with that? So I totally think it's interesting. I don't know who's gonna, if anyone would buy these studios. Maybe Avalanche, but if they then, I mean, for you also have to look at it like this. Sony still got 30% of every Hogwarts Legacy copy sold on PlayStation. Why would they then also need... But they did not spend any money on it. Of course, they had a business deal. They paid a lot of the advertisement. But probably a lot of people bought the PS5 because they thought, oh, Hogwarts Legacy, I have to play that on PS5. They, of course, had the exclusive mission as well. I don't know why Sony would then also, have Avalanche to basically spend a few $100 million on that game. I think, I don't see why they would want that. Rocksteady is not the same. Why would you buy that? Monolith the same. Like I talked about the Black Panther game. A lot of people from Monolith Productions, of course, Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War, they're now doing Wonder Woman. Like a lot of the senior people seemingly went to make their own studio, Cliffhanger Games, and they're now doing the Black Panther game. So I don't know what you're buying with that.
Well, to be clear, like there's two things that are being discussed. On the one hand are sales of studios. That in the recent reporting seems a little less like the route that they would go. What seems more likely is that they would license the IP. So similar to what Disney did with Star Wars in the 2010s, they would give like any number of studios or publishers, they would sign deals where, okay, you can make Batman games now. You can use the Nemesis system. You can use Wonder Woman. You can do this. You can use Harry Potter. And that's not a bad idea. Like, just imagine if they start to license this stuff out. Imagine like Alarian makes a pitch for a really intense like Lord of the Rings RPG, or for like a Harry Potter franchised RPG. All sorts of weird, crazy stuff you wouldn't ever expect to see from Warner Brothers Discovery now would be possible if they were willing to license out IP and not sit on it themselves. And I think that that's sort of what they've realized is they have all of these IP that have so much potential, but it takes them so long and it costs so much to actually follow through and get a product out the door. And even then it might not make you that money back, that they'd rather just do the Marvel thing, as you alluded to earlier, and take 30% of every copy and let another studio worry about all of that crap of making a good game. You know, like that's just way, way easier. And whether anybody jumps on it is another question, because it's all about price, you know, and the value. Because even the Marvel's like Spider-Man games, those have to sell. I think we said what, 8-9 million to break even?
Yeah, 8 million to break even.
That's crazy. That's great. And maybe, you know, Xbox is like that. Yeah, that's not worth it. We don't want any of our teams tied up with that. Maybe Sony thinks they can pull it off, but even then, like that's been the complaint of the new CFO of Sony, is that their margins are way tighter than they should be.
And this overall feels like they're kind of missing the boat already, because we talked about it, like, why was the Mandalorian game canceled? Because EA was like, yeah, we can better have this team make more Apex or like stuff that we actually own. That is also the story about Assassin's Creed Jade, where Tencent is like, sure, we can make a Ubisoft game where every microtransaction we have to pay this amount to Ubisoft, or we can make our own game where we own everything. And that has kind of been the trend. And Ubisoft as well, like they have done Avatar, Star Wars Outlaws, like they're not even waiting to see how successful Star Wars Outlaws is. They already know this team is going to make Division 3. Even the DLCs for Star Wars Outlaws, which they've announced, are not being made by the Ubisoft massive team that did Outlaws. Like they're being made by probably Ubisoft Singapore or like another team, so that studio can go to their bread, like the Division 3 that they will fully own as soon as possible. So we're seeing this shift where all these companies are kind of like, we first thought making a Marvel game or a licensed game, period, would be like a guaranteed success. But yeah, then we got Guardians of the Galaxy and like many others that is still like Indiana Jones. I don't think that game is going to sell well, but they probably spent a ton of money on it, and they do feel that they have to market it a lot, and they probably have to give a lot to Lucasfilm as well. Like, I hope that deal is not as crazy as with Spider-Man, but still, 20% probably goes to Disney. Do you then you have to sell way more to get the same amount of profit? Is that even worth it anymore? Like EA focusing very much on Battlefield. Sure, they still have Black Panther and Iron Man, probably because those games are looking promising and are already far ahead or already like well into development. But we also know that that team that is making Iron Man, instead of making more like helping like the full US or EA motive working on Iron Man, no, they're helping with Battlefield as well. So all these studios are looking at their margins and thinking these games are costing so much to make, we want to get the most out of it. So then Warner Bros. Coming, hey guys, want to make a Batman game? We take 30%. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Well, that's why
let's not do it.
Like, the best place to be in a negotiation is in the power position, and Warner Brothers is very quickly approaching a point of desperation. And that, for any other person negotiating, that's when they can come in and be like, okay, yeah, we'll license your IP.
Yeah,
you're getting 10%. Then the numbers work out a lot better. But the only way that happens is if it's like you're pretty desperate for something to happen. And even then, like some of you are mentioning in chat, like Hugo says, those games are still 4 to 6 years away. I mean, it's not like this will happen. Let's say they license it out to some studio, and then next month we get a like crazy new Batman game. It just doesn't work that way. But it shows that Warner Brothers Discovery is trying to make a shift and a pivot. I don't know what the long-term ramifications are for like the Harry Potter games or for the Hogwarts games. I know they're hiring like mad right now, so they're really on a hiring spree. Because I'm on. Yeah,
you would hope that they want to make that in-house still, right?
Yeah, and I think it's because now they've seen, okay, you guys know what you're doing, and I will say, guys, I've been on those lists for job postings, watching them very closely, and they've been working on it for like what, a year and a half now. Not a single mention of live service, not a single mention of anything concerning. They're just hiring like character artists, a ton of character artists. Honestly, it's kind of crazy. So I think they're expecting the next game to be huge in terms of scale and NPCs and stuff. Because they've hired, I don't even know how many dozens and dozens and dozens of character artists, but I haven't seen anything concerning in terms of how they've structured it, which is
Social
refreshing.
stealth in Hogwarts Legacy too.
Social stuff. I swear to God, I think it would be so cool if they started using the Nemesis system in more franchises. I don't know exactly what it would look like in a Hogwarts Legacy type game. I don't know if it works, but I want that. I want more robust class systems, kind of like even do something, maybe not quite like Persona, but it could be tied to leveling, like a bully, like the bully games. Do something like that. I said bully games. There's only one. It's wishful thinking, but still, it'd be great.
I mean, yeah, they did like the scholarship edition or whatever, right?
Yeah, maybe that's what the director's cut is going to be.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they're looking at doing that. Warner Brothers is in trouble. They made an oopsie, thought their TV networks were worth $9 billion more.
One more thing before we move on, and I want to like real quick answer 53 Nights here. Any update on the director's cut, of course. Like they are work like that has been Bloomberg, of course. Jason Schreier, he has been right many times before, so we can totally believe this. He said that Rocksteady, like a lot of Rocksteady's people, are instead of working on Suicide Squad, helping with the Hogwarts Legacy director's cut. Any updates on that? We haven't heard anything since. My prediction is that during the September PlayStation event, where they might like reveal the PS5 Pro, very likely. I hope they do a showcase that we see it and that it launches this year. Oh, that it's like a nice Christmas.
It's
game.
A layup for Christmas. I mean we're the year and a half mark, 2 year mark. That is prime time for people to replay something. Like I've even considered like, I mean, I could see jumping back into it, doing a full run through again, because it's just far enough away that you've forgotten some of it. And if they add in new quests, if they add in new class stuff, if they add in the seasonal like toggle and things like that, there's so much that they could do. And honestly, I don't really want them to spend that much longer on it, because I'd rather they just start pouring all their effort into the next one.
But maybe they're like, okay, but it's not gonna be this generation, so let's get something out for this, like a beefed up version of Hogwarts Legacy.
Yeah.
And maybe Switch 2, like that could also be why they're kind of aiming for that window. And another thing that I thought was one small thing. If you like go to in the Hogwarts Legacy director's cut, go to the Quidditch pit. If you then interact, you will boot up Quidditch Champions.
Oh, it just launches the second game.
Yeah. It will install it, and you're in the game, and you bought it, and
they're like, pops up with a screen that's just got
Thank you for purchase. Yeah. That's probably what's gonna happen. And one final thing that I thought was interesting. So, like, let's say they're gonna shop around, and let's say studios are gonna be interested in these licenses. Who should pick up which license? Like, what team should be making? Like, what is your perfect
dream scenario?
Yeah,
I think so. Let me just lay the foundation. Okay, as I alluded to earlier, I think a Larian RPG with the Lord of the Rings license, and then you throw in Nemesis system mechanics into it, so it's like an intense RPG narratively. Also with Nemesis system stuff, I would literally cream. Beyond that, my favorite Harry Potter movies and books, I guess, are the later ones, the ones with like the slower pace, darker, moodier, grittier. So what I'd like to see is like maybe a CDPR style open world adventure sort of RPG, but in the Harry Potter universe, but that takes on a much darker tone. I think that could be really interesting. And then as for Batman, I'm trying to think if there's any studios capable of doing a Batman game justice. Honestly, narratively, I don't know if they have the capabilities in terms of gameplay, but narratively, I think like a Naughty Dog or Santa Monica Batman game would be crazy. Imagine like a super gory, they do like the Batman Who Laughs. They do like that storyline, and it's just horrifying. I think that could be really, really awesome. As for other IP they own, I mean, but
they don't own Lord of the Rings, I think. Because
did they license it with his estate though? Or am I just
No,
making
but I
that
think
up?
Amazon has it now. They bought it. Like I know Embracer has it. Remember one of their companies
You're
being called
right.
Middle Earth, Middle Earth
They
Production.
sold it.
Yeah,
Um, you're right. So that won't
that's
happen. Oh well, bummer. Yeah, Embracer Group bought those rights in 2022 from Saul Zaent's company, which had previously worked with Warner Brothers. They paid $400 million for the rights. Man, what a steal. So I guess that can happen. Everyone be sad. It's not going to happen. Sucks to suck. Everything's terrible. What would you do, Mr. Jor?
yeah. I'm really. I like that Harry Potter game. What they did with Hogwarts Legacy was kind of what I always wanted them to do. I just want like a more in-depth game like that because it really felt like they were kind of holding back with all the. Like I really want to get be able to like skip classes and then hear about it. Like actually have choices that matter. But that just feels like something they might do in a future game. Like
I
I'm
mean,
gonna go a completely different route. I don't want this. I already feel with all the Marvel games and freaking Arcane making Blade and all these studios, Machine Games making India. All these studios are making these licensed games instead of like they could have done maybe something completely new that would have been very cool. So if Warner is gonna shop around all their stuff as well, then the industry is gonna get, especially in AAA space, way less exciting because then we will like we already have the huge franchises, of course, that are gonna release a game every so often, and then all these sort of in between games will be Marvel or DC games. I don't want to live in that timeline, so I'm gonna be like keep them. Um, that's a very boring answer, but plot twist.
yeah, it's what would you like them to do if they licensed it?
Don't do
No. Anyway, so that's there we go. Kappa, thank you for re-upping your membership, by the way. 14 months. Ooh, baby. Always happy to be here for the podcast. You guys make my cubicle a lot less lonely. Yeah, we're all getting in that cubicle together, my friend. Glad to have you.
Very, very, very warm.
Yeah, very warm. Yes. Joraptor is a walking furnace. Okay. Moving forward.
Okay, Gamescom. Speaking of furnace, there are a lot of people there, and they're all sweaty, and I don't think they take showers. So, pro tip: when you go to Gamescom, like make sure that you have something to protect your nose.
Dude, it's so funny you say that because like, so as you know, I'm into Warhammer stuff, and I came across this post on Twitter, and I don't have it on my full screen, so I'll have to just hold it up to the screen like a boomer. But apparently the FBI, for Warhammer fans, the FBI investigated Warhammer players back in the 1990s, and they wrote a report, and I'm not making this up. This is like the text of the report, okay? It says, advised that wargamers are generally extremely intelligent individuals. Often they live frugally to support the cost of their wargaming hobby, blank, blank, blank. Further advised that the typical wargaming enthusiast is overweight and not neat in appearance. And it's like a lot of, I think, gamers and people that go to these types of conventions fall into a similar trap. I just encourage anybody, take a shower.
Yeah,
put on some
take
cologne.
Care of yourself as much as you take care of your hobbies. That's a very good life tip right there.
Yeah, you might not smell yourself. Other people can. That's the other thing. That's what you got to remember.
No, I sometimes smell myself like, oh, nice.
Yeah. No.
Okay, Gamescom. Games. They have those as well next to the sweaty people. Pearl Abyss confirmed. Crimson Desert. That stole the show last year.
Yeah.
Will be playable at the booth. So we can
actually
get hands-on.
Yeah, I got to ask you about Crimson Desert. Do you think it is as good as it looked last year? Do you think it's going to be like pulling the rug out from under you, and it just doesn't
It's gonna
really
be
play
good,
that?
but I don't think it's gonna be as good as we saw last year. I do think the trailer was like one of the best trailers I've seen. Like it just was like, what are they doing? How did why is there a balloon? Why is there a dragon and we're on the back of the? Why is there a? I don't know what else there was in the trailer, but it was constantly like you were surprised, and that was really cool. I
Yeah.
hope I like that. It kind of feels like a Black Myth Wukong situation, right? Although Pearl Abyss is a bit more known, but it's still like Black Desert Online. I played it. They have like a very pretty character creator, and that's kind of where my knowledge ends. But this, I think it's cool that they're making an open world single player RPG instead of making it online, which they wanted to do first. I hope it's good. It looks like the impact when you like swing your sword and kick the enemy, and it just looks very, very good. So I mean, I do think it's a green flag that they're making it playable, because we know what Cyberpunk did. They did not make it playable. And then, yeah, we ended up with a game that sadly wasn't what we expected at launch. Now it is, of course, very good. So, yeah, I sadly won't be at Gamescom this year. It's just the timing is not ideal with Wukong in the same week. And also because, for example, here Ubisoft is going to be there as well. They have 100 demos for Star Wars Outlaws, so if you want to play the game 1 week before it comes out, you can. I mean, that's kind of nice to maybe if you're still on the fence. They will have one mission there. Again, I do think, I'm not sure if that will do the game justice, but hey, you can play it. For Assassin's Creed, though, it's not playable. Like Origins, Odyssey, Valhalla was COVID, so it was not a Gamescom. But usually these big Assassin's Creed games are playable if they come out, because they come out like a few months later. Not the case for Shadows. They're going to do a live demonstration of Yasuke's and Naoe's distinct playstyles. And that sounds a lot like what we saw at Summer Game Fest, don't you think?
Yeah. I don't know. There's just something about it that is just weirding me out. And I want to be clear, like, with a lot of these types of games, I'm always like, there might be a lot of reasons you don't like something. But if there is something that is more quantifiable and more, I think people will accept it regardless of other biases, I think you should focus on that. Like for Suicide Squad, a lot of people were like, see, the character designs suck. That's why, or they worked with SBI. That's why you should boycott the game and not buy it. I was like, or you could just point to the fact that it's a bad game and it's really short and very expensive and nobody's playing it, so matchmaking is terrible. Like, you can point to all these other things that people are much more likely to agree with you on across the broad spectrum of other considerations and opinions. So for like AC Shadows, I understand some people are really perturbed by like the Yasuke stuff. That's fine. Like, you don't have to buy the game. Nobody's forcing you to buy the game. But I also think it's strange that it's supposed to be like this big epic open world thing, and all we've really seen are discussions of two play styles, one which looks particularly clunky and the other one that looks fine, but it doesn't look like much of a leap forward or anything. And this is supposed to be like their big leap forward. It's been like 4 years since Valhalla, or sorry.
Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Sorry, I need to be respectful of the name.
No, but I mean, we like that is just really the time we're living in right now, where these games are getting the proper reveal very close to launch. And I mean, looking at Outlaws as well, it basically got the big previews where we could all say we played 4 hours 3 weeks before it comes out. So they have still a lot of time. It's just that is kind of what we have now. And looking at the past, it was playable, so it does seem like it's coming in hot. Also looking at the release date, which November 15th, of course, that is like the final day you can launch it if you still want the Black Friday sales. And with a game like this, you want the game on the shelf around that time. And Valhalla was the same. And we know how that launched. That was not pretty. So, I mean, if this means, if them not making this Gamescom demo means they have a few more extra weeks to polish things up, it's a good idea. It's a good thing for them. But, it is kind of I said green flag. People were like, first time I heard someone say green flag. I'm now going to say, this is kind of a red flag. But hey, I think it's too soon to judge. But yeah,
That's fair.
it's
I
if you're
don't know.
going to Gamescom. Yeah, you're watching gameplay that we already shared. So strap in. I hope they actually go do a new Outpost though, but I don't think they will. So Xbox will be there big time because it's the first time, of course, they have Activision Blizzard. The games they have hands-on, Age of Mythology Retold, Aura History Unfold. Those two games next to each other, like that's crazy.
Yeah, that's weird.
Diablo 4, Vessel of Hatred, the DLC, of course. Fallout 76, you can play it there. It's probably a version that is already out. And the Elder Scrolls Online, which already out as well, the Gold Road expansion. And Towerborn, which kind of looks pretty cool. And they will also have theaters for About, Indiana Jones, and Starfield. So yeah, it seems like you will be sitting a lot this year's Gamescom and not playing a lot.
Yeah, I think didn't they say something weird about the Shattered Space thing where like they're not going to show it publicly? It's only going to be behind closed doors.
That's possible. I mean, that was for last year's Starfield demo as well. They, I think what they showed there was not, but that was like very close to launch. But the rumors are that the DLC is coming September, so yeah, we won't.
I have a
to
feeling
wait
they're
that
gonna
long.
like shadow drop it or something, or they'll give like a few days notice.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think like honestly, one of the impressions I've gotten with a lot of stuff recently, like Star Wars Outlaws, has made me think of it a lot. Actually, is with some of these games. I think marketing wise, sometimes less is more. Like, I think if you have something you know people are interested in, I think you can wait. You don't have to do this long protracted like 6-month thing. If you do want to wait, like we were saying for AC Shadows, and just do everything in the last month or so to just dominate the news cycle, that's fine. I think that might work better for some of these games, because I feel like with a lot of them, if they're shown too much, people just start to mentally check out. So maybe that'll help with Starfield.
So you think that maybe the previews they did for Star Wars Outlaws hurt more than they actually gained with them?
I mean, definitely the 10-minute clip they gave to IGN, that was a huge blunder. As for like the 4-hour previews, I haven't seen a lot of people come out of it. You know, a lot of people that played it for 4 hours came out more excited or interested than when they went in, which is good. But like a lot of the I don't know. It's just I've seen so much other negative coverage paired with it. Like I got quote tweeted by somebody, or not quote tweeted. Somebody referenced one of my videos and was like, so he points to a few things he liked and also a few things he doesn't like, which probably means he doesn't like it at all, and he's just couching his opinion. I'm like, or I just meant what I said, and I like these things, I didn't like those things. It's just, I don't know. I don't know. I think just with a lot of these things, if you're going to dominate the news cycle, you shouldn't be surprised when there's also negative coverage. But whether that actually affects the performance of the game,
I think it is actually like that is what I do appreciate about how Ubisoft does the previews. Like they don't sugarcoat it. Like maybe the first reveal they have, of course, back in the day, Watch Dogs, Rainbow Six Siege, even Star Wars Outlaws to a certain degree had that old school, this is maybe too good to be true trailer, and then they go dark for a year. But after that, they're like, this is the game. We think we have something on our hands here. And then, I mean, they let more people play this game than they ever had for a preview session. And yeah, they could have just been like, hey, it's Star Wars. We're releasing some very curated trailers that gonna show a lot of cool stuff. And yeah, people will just wait till launch. It's Star Wars gonna sell itself. But no, they actually let us play multiple times.
I mean, maybe you compare it to like Black Myth, where it's like they had it at SGF, they've had it at Gamescom, so people have played it, but they aren't doing these like massive play tests for 4 hours with every creator you've ever heard of
and record everything.
Yeah, they aren't doing that. They're like, we have a game we know you want. If you come to these events, you can try a sliver of it, but Like, we're just going to drop a couple trailers and then leave a lot of it up to the imagination. And I think that is maybe something that Ubisoft hasn't done a lot in the past, is leaving stuff up to the imagination. Feels like by the time the game launches, you know everything that's in it. I mean, even Odyssey, like they showed some of the big cool reveals of like, I think they showed the Medusa and everything, which was like a very late game. It was like one of the last little islands you can get to. It's like, why did you spoil that? Like, you didn't have to spoil that, but they did. And so, I don't know. I think maybe more mystery could be helpful.
Yeah, I agree. Although for us as creators, I don't agree. Like I like being able to talk to the developers and get as much info and have like a video up with info that I only have, right? That's like, yeah, one of the videos that I like to make a lot. So again, I'm for them giving us all the access so we can make the content, but I do think that you're right that like for Black Myth Wukong, all there are the trailers they curated, and they gave IGN some gameplay that one of their like super high level QA guys showed, so they have like the best possible gameplay. And if someone types in Black Myth Wukong, it's, you know what they're gonna get, and it's all good stuff. While with Outlaws, you're getting the IGN video or someone else who picked up the controller for the first time in a year. Like sometimes it feels like that when you watch those gameplays, and that's not doing the game justice. So we will see how it evolves, but I hope that it stays like this. I think that's like most fair to the consumer, but yeah, we of course like to look at it from a business perspective as well. And yeah, I mean, I saw a lot of people after my gameplay, they were like, "Ooh, the AI is not that great." Ooh. So yeah. One update on what we talked about last week. Seems like you were, right on the Dragon Age thing. I don't have it actually in the doc, but Jeff Grubb said late October is what they're aiming for. Jeff Grubb, of course, reporter, right? Many times. We know this month they're gonna announce the release date for Dragon Age Dread. I keep saying Dreadwolf.
Me
It's
too.
the Veil God.
I do too.
I think it's a way better name still, but hey, there at one point we will get used to it. But I hope it's late October. I mean, I don't think they need to worry about Call of Duty, and it's like 3 weeks before Assassin's Creed probably. This game really has to hit. This game has to be like, okay, EA has to be like, okay, we should keep BioWare. I really think if this game sells less than like 3 million by the end of the year, things might not be looking good over there. But
that's why,
and they have a lot of work to do still because the hype is not there at all.
I mean, this is perhaps the highest stakes and most dramatic release of the year, because literally, I mean, I think everybody, the whole studio, everything, the legacy of the studio is probably all on the line. I know people have said like, well, they've alluded to the next Mass Effect game, so they have other projects in the works. Yeah, but I just don't know how on earth any executive looks at a studio that has, let's just hypothetically say this is a flop. I don't know how you have 3 flops in a row and are given another $200 million. Like, I just don't get that. I don't see how that possibly makes sense. If it reviews really well, but it doesn't sell well, I could see an exception being made. It's like EA likes, having critically acclaimed studios, so they like working with Haze Light. They like having those games, so that could help it if it reviews really
lower
well.
risk though. Like those games, like in It Takes Two, probably cost 10% of what Dragon Age cost to make. But,
True, absolutely true. But still, I mean, there's a lot of things to consider. But I just think, like Joe Raptor said, this is a very, very high stakes release. I think so far, a lot of people are very cautious with it because they've been burned twice in a row by this studio. And I think that's fair. I mean, I'm like, we make all these videos on being proud skeptics and stuff. And it's because when a studio has a history of amazing work, you can have more confidence that they're going to be able to put something out that's higher quality. Like Rockstar, I think you're totally fine being very excited for GTA 6 because they've demonstrated they don't really miss. Now, the day where they do miss, it will be a industry-shaking news story because it will be such a surprise because they're so reliable. But in the case of BioWare right now, like, again, 2 back-to-back colossal flops, and we just don't know whether this one will actually live up to it. Now, I saw an hour of the game behind closed doors at Summer Game Fest. They later clipped, I think it was like 15 minutes roughly of that section and posted it online. The game actually is freakishly polished from what we saw, and it seems really interesting. The combat reminded me actually a lot of Hogwarts Legacy, but with, I think, a little bit more depth in terms of like the parries were similar and stuff like that, but they seemingly have a lot more skills.
More like
things that can be
Odyssey.
applied.
Thought Odyssey was kind of
Sure. Yeah, I could see that.
with like the thief class and the ability wheel and stuff
Yeah,
like
and
that.
it's tough to gauge those types of combat systems with various classes because it depends so much on how it feels, and we just don't know.
It is though what I have said during this podcast, and I think that could be the downfall. Like one thing is Baldur's Gate 3, like the stake, like you have to be way better at like the storytelling and choices now to actually captivate people, like to actually be like, whoa, they did a very good job, and I cannot see them reach that level. But also, once again, I think this is not a game that is gonna do anything new, and that is fine. Like we just want BioWare back in their, like what we know them from. We like the Dragon Age series, but like I said, also with Outlaws, first say Wukong. Wukong is a game you've not played before. Like that is in a very cool setting. It looks flashy. It plays really like you are really a powerful character. They're very unique. Like they have like transformations where Wukong transforms into an enemy. They have a lot of interesting things with probably many things we have not seen before. One of the cool things that I remembered when we were doing a video again, they have this boss, and if you like do a lot of damage in the first phase, the boss actually leaves and goes to a different area close by. You go there, boss suddenly has like wings and different things. I was told this while I was playing. I was still very good, obviously, but did not do as much damage in the first phase. So only was fighting the boss in their like regular form. So they're like small, cool secrets like that, where bosses could have secret phases that you could skip if you're not good enough. I hope Dragon Age has stuff like that. But if I look at that game, it feels like a game I've already played. I'm still excited because I like these types of games, but I hope there's more to it that we're not seeing.
Yeah, and I mean, if they are actually targeting a late August time period, I mean, I think in terms of marketing, they probably hit it hard in September, because I think Black Myth and Star Wars, especially Star Wars, like Ubisoft's pouring so much money into advertising and marketing, so that probably is just not that practical to try and start really catching headlines during that period. But September, if they really start to hit it hard, I could see that. I don't know if they're going to do something similar to Star Wars Outlaws. I think they probably should, because skepticism is so high. They probably should give people hands-on time and extended gameplay looks and stuff like that.
Yeah,
100%. Because even if all of the metrics, all of the trailers, let's just say they drop a ton more trailers, deep dives, gameplay videos, all that, and it all looks good, I think there's still a lot of people who very justifiably will wait. Like they're just going to sit on it because they've been burned before by this studio. So I think they need to just embrace full transparency and take the approach that we are going to win you back. We know you don't currently back us or trust us. Let's win it.
They cannot afford any like Assassin's Creed Shadow like disasters or something like one where it's like a horse arm, or like they have like a weird microtransaction or something. Like they cannot afford any of that sort of stuff that can, because they're already fighting an uphill battle.
And that's why honestly,
we're gonna follow it though.
Oh yeah, and honestly, I think if their approach is okay, no mistakes. It's similar to like politics, where like if a politician is prone to gaffes or mistakes, just saying stupid stuff, the best way to deal with it is to just lock them in the basement, and then you just send out statements, or you just do it very, very controlled drops of information and do it that way. And with Dragon Age, maybe the solution is, hey, we know we're not going to get a lot of pre-orders, but we really think our game is very good and word of mouth is going to carry it. So we're going to do a very reserved marketing cycle and we're going to drop it. Reviews will come in at 9 out of 10 or whatever they think they're going to get. And then word of mouth will carry it through.
Yeah, and then it's like Christmas, and people are like, "Oh."
Yeah, maybe that's just the best way to handle it, because at least then you can't make a blunder.
And it's the best game to do, or like the best year to do it. Like I saw people in the chat as well, like a slow year when we were talking about, oh, what's gonna be at Gamescom, and yeah, it is. Like putting this out next year is tough, and this year, I mean, Dragon Age Inquisition. Why did that sell well? It was 2014. People bought the new console. They wanted something cool to play. Hey, that game was surprisingly good. Like, not a lot of people had it on their radar. And yeah, it sold really well as well. So, yeah, I hope it does well, because I want BioWare to be around. I want EA to be more than the live service studio. And yeah, right now they are moving in the direction, because who can blame them? Like 80% or 90% of their revenue is from these live service games. So it's crazy. But let's move on to the final few small things that we can quickly touch on. First, another super chat. You want to take that one?
Oh, yes. Let me pull that up real quick. So, Maya, thank you so much, my friend. Guys, you all don't need to hide your feelings. No need to be shy. You can admit it. We all know Dragon Ball Sparking Zero will win Game of the Year. Do we all know that? I have nothing.
When did a Dragon Ball game win Game of the Year?
It's
not gonna happen.
It's one of those, like, I've just never been into Dragon Ball. I missed that wave of popularity. So but to be fair, I was very sheltered as a kid. So I also didn't get Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We weren't allowed to watch Harry Potter because it was satanic. Kind of anything really cool, we probably didn't get access to. Pokemon was of the devil, so Pokemon also was demonic. Just a lot of things. They're like, you realize they're playing games where they spawn and summon monsters? This is Satan's handiwork.
Oh my god.
It was it's a whole thing.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
I mean, I get it on one end. Like, it's, if you like really think about Pokemon, it is kind of
evil.
Kind of screwed. It's kind of evil. I get it. But hey,
Jor Raptor agrees with like the Bible.
I agree.
Pokemon haters.
I agree.
I love it. Well, it's funny you say that, Jimmy, because he says foosball is the devil. So football, I spent a lot of my childhood in Texas. And in Texas, they have a college football team called the Longhorns, which is a reference to like Longhorn, like bulls and steers. So, with the big horns. So what they do in the stands is they have like this that they do, and it's the Longhorns. You put your pinky and your pointer finger out, and they go, Longhorns, and they cheer for the team like that. And one of the people that we spent a lot of time with growing up, they told us, no, we don't go into football stadiums. We don't talk about football. We don't do any of that. Did you see? They were making devil horns, and they're all chanting together like it's some sort of demonic ritual. And I remember being like 7 and be like, well, they wouldn't just say that. I guess that's true. And now looking back on it, I'm like, those people must have been so miserable. Everything was demonic. Like they're just surrounded by demons all over.
I mean, when you like focus on something, you will see it. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And you will see demons everywhere. Okay, moving on. I did some digging, Luke. I did some digging.
Let's hear Jor Raptor's going to share the game he is most excited for in the world.
Yes.
It's
not Dragon Ball.
It's it's not Dragon Ball. Okay, share with us what this is.
Yeah. So, like you said, you also look at the Avalanche, like for the Hogwarts team, the job listings. Like my landing page is the Guerrilla Games join page. Maybe it's not really my landing page, but hey, I go there sometimes, and then they've been like very kind to me, because first it was like a job listing, and then I had to figure out for which team it was. But now they're like, here, a senior machine combat designer for the online project. So hey, everything that is in that job posting relates to the online project. So for if you don't know, Guerrilla Games, of course, Killzone, Horizon. They're now doing a Horizon online game because Jim Ryan was like, money, and we want live service money. And Guerrilla Games was like, hey, we always wanted to do Horizon in co-op. Let's do it.
And we also
yeah, and they like money too. Amsterdam, very expensive. They have like one of the most expensive buildings in Amsterdam, so they gotta make money. So yeah, I looked at the job listings and I thought there were some interesting things. So for one, they confirmed that iconic Horizon machines will have updated behaviors, so probably moves and attacks, to work against multiple players. So it's really going to be, the core seems to be a Monster Hunter-like experience where you're playing a character in the Horizon world, fighting robots together. The game will also feature new machines, so that's going to be exciting. I mean, the Lego Horizon game, for example, or Horizon Call of the Mountain, only are using Zero Dawn machines. Metrics, player feedback, and other analytics will be used to improve and refine each machine over time. So, player feedback, I mean, they sure have QA testers there, but it also sounds like post-launch, if they're getting feedback, hey, this machine is a certain way, they're going to tweak that. And that sounds like obvious for a live service game, but we never had that for an Horizon game where they were like, now this machine does this attack instead of this attack. And they also had this quote, the machine enemies should be spectacular, challenging, and memorable to fight cooperatively. Okay. This is interesting. It should also feature engaging story content that works hand in hand with our compelling gameplay. And like that was one of the cool... Say what you will about Forbidden West, I love the game. Amazing. And one of the cool things they, of course, did was that even the very, like, optional conversation still looked very good. They did a lot of motion capture for all the conversations they did. And for this game, they are asking the senior cinematic animator to actively push the quality standards for cinematic animation to new industry benchmarks. So it seems like even for this multiplayer game, there should be some cool cutscenes and stuff in there. And they're still going for the stylized graphics. Maybe you can pull up the image that appeared online, which should give us an idea, although it was a very old image, and hopefully it doesn't look like that anymore. I have a new theory, though, on why it might look like that. But for the audio listeners, imagine Fortnite characters fighting in Thunderjaw.
Yes.
Which pains me to say. And then I do a reminder. This online game has been in development for at least 6.5 years already. And remember Horizon Zero Dawn, which was like a huge shift to, from Horizon Zero Dawn, or from Killzone Shadowfall, Killzone in general, to a open world RPG like Horizon. That took them 7 years. So they're already working, like, they're going to work longer on this game before it's out than Horizon Zero Dawn, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of the new info. Sure, it's like, I mean, I think there are some interesting bits. It's not like the biggest new info, but I always like it. Like, a lot of people are sometimes like, huh, is this game in development? So I sometimes like to remind people from, hey, we might see it next year. Same week as Monster Hunter Wilds.
Yep.
Probably.
Good luck. I think they'll need it. I don't know. So why do you said or alluded to maybe knowing why they went with this art style? Why do you think they went with this art style?
Yeah, so what we learned from the no-clip documentary for the Horizon Zero Dawn was that they wanted to do co-op already in Horizon 1 because, of course, with Killzone, they've been doing like multiplayer as well. And yeah, it of course, the premise of fighting these robots together is very cool. But what they saw is that when they wanted to do that, they would have to nuke the graphical quality down by a lot to have two people in the same space. And in the image, we see 5 people fighting a machine. So it seems like we can go with parties of 5. Maybe they will have a hub area as well where everyone runs around so you can see the skins and whatever. I really think that they just could not... It will look like a huge downgrade if they would go for the same graphical art style as Forbidden West. So maybe that is why they're going for this stylized look to still own it and to kind of be like, this is now what we are doing, instead of that it's compared to Forbidden West. I'm not saying it's the right choice, but that might be why they're doing it. And of course, it has to launch on PC as well. And yeah, with this art style, you can probably run it on way more PCs than Forbidden West, which required a very, very beefy PC.
I think it makes sense, but like you said, is it going to be well received is another issue. I don't know, man. It's just I know they're pouring a lot into this.
Oh,
And of any of the studios that I think have the potential to pull this off, it's probably Guerrilla. I thought that the idea of a Last of Us online component was really cool. Obviously they canned it because they thought that it definitely wasn't going to work out, which really, after the fallout from Bungie and everything, makes you wonder how bad it really was. If they thought that like Concord and Fair Games were good to go, but that was not.
it was mostly that they would have to change their whole studio, so they would release way less single player games, if at all, to have this like work properly.
For long-term
on the
support.
level that,
But
that
you'd
people
still
expect.
think if they dropped it for $40-$50 and we're just like, hey guys, we're not doing long-term support for this, but play it, enjoy it. Like, at least then they get some money from it, but they just dumped it. So maybe it was still really far off and they just decided to cut their losses. I don't know. But anyway, I think that this has potential. I mean, they've poured a lot of money. They've hired a lot of people for it. They're putting a lot of chips on this one. And so they think they have something that could potentially pop off. What we know right now about it is that it's this like Monster Hunter adjacent style game. And honestly, going head to head with actual Monster Hunter, I just don't think ends well. Because even if this game is really good, people who like Monster Hunter games are going to play the game Monster Hunter. And I just don't know how much success this will have. Now, it might have other modes. It might have other stuff that appeals to totally different audiences. But if it really is basically Monster Hunter, but in the Horizon universe, going head to head with the Kings, it's just not going to end well. Because it's like dropping your Souls-like game next to Elden Ring 2. You're going to lose. Like, you just will. So I don't know if this is something that they're planning for like 2026 and they're just going to skirt around Monster Hunter, or maybe they're going to drop it right before Monster Hunter and try to be like, I'm going to warm up for Monster Hunter with this, but it's a live service game.
That is how the Concord rule. Like, at first I thought, no, it would have been announced right now. But if they announced it in September during the PS5 Pro reveal or whatever, and then have it in February just before Monster Hunter, which is probably like March or something, I don't think that's a smart idea either. I think the best approach for them would be a year after Monster Hunter, because I do think the mainstream and like a lot of people will fall off. Although then you will have the Iceborne like expansion. So I think I don't know. They just have to make a really good game and then see from there. But I think the push for story content, if it is really like the Concord model taken to the next level, where every season you have, because this is gonna be canon. Like, this is gonna be a very new take or like a new look at the Horizon universe, where we're not playing this OP character. We're playing Aloy divided into 5 people, right? Like, we're not going to be able to do all the things that she can do. And I love the fact that we might be able to see a tribe's, like how a tribe functions from without like being this character that everyone like kind of praises. So I think for the lore, it could be very, very interesting. And if they have every season a few new story missions, that could work a lot, because I don't think, sure, Monster Hunter is making strides in that, like they have like a voiced character now as well. But we never, like, you don't play that game for the story. Yeah. So, but on the other hand, that could hurt this as well. Like, we don't want to sit through a lot of dialogue before we can play with our friends. So I don't know. I'm just worried, and we've talked about this before, that this will be that the art style will not go over well. Like that is my biggest, and they cannot have that. They cannot have that.
I agree, and especially with them, if they do what you're suggesting they might, which is announcing it as part of the PS5 Pro announcement. I think announcing a game that represents a visual downgrade from what you did however many, like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that's just, it's going to be a bad look. But beyond that, I think Leo in chat brings up an interesting point. He says it's a Horizon game. It's dropping within 2 weeks of Monster Hunter.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny because it's kind of a meme now where the first game drops right next to Breath of the Wild, still sells well, but is certainly overshadowed by that game. I think it could have done even better if it had a little bit more room. The second game, they drop it right next to Elden Ring. Still sold pretty well, but I think would have done even better if it had more breathing room. With this game, I wouldn't be surprised if they also drop it next to Monster Hunter, because Sony has a history, and I think it's Herman Hulst predominantly. I think that they just have a history of overestimating the power of the Horizon franchise, and it sells well, sure, but again, like pride goes before the fall, and I think, you know, a lot of the mistakes that have been made with PlayStation so far this generation have come from them thinking they can just kind of do anything and it will work out and gamers will just go along with it. I think it's also an issue because when this is announced, people in our circles know about this. Like, we've heard this discussed, we've heard the rumors. Joel Raptor has very generously kept us informed, but for the average consumer, they haven't heard about this, and I don't think anybody has asked for it. And I think that's the bigger thing, is we'll get an announcement. It will look like a visually downgraded Horizon game that's multiplayer and live service, and people are going to be like, okay, like, who asked? Like, what? Okay, I might try it, but it's probably going to be $70.
I prefer them doing this because they have to do something with live service, but I prefer them going this route where they're taking, like, I see people ask, Horizon 3 is still in development, like, they're still gonna do that. I do think it's gonna take way longer because of the focus on this game. Like, I follow all these developers that are from the Burning Shores DLC for Horizon 2, now working on this instead. So, yeah, it's gonna impact it, especially if this is success. I think Horizon 3 might be a smaller game and they're just going to be focused on this. But yeah, that's far in the future if this is a success at all. But like, I prefer that than going for Concord, right? Or going for fair games. I think like what we're seeing with Helldivers success, what they should take away from that is that it's an experience that you can't get elsewhere. And yeah, that's kind of with Horizon and Monster Hunter. Yeah, you can get it elsewhere. Maybe they're doing a lot of interesting things.
Yeah.
That could set this apart. But that's why I hope that The Last of Us Online was gonna happen, because yeah, that is unique, right? And a God of War co-op game or something, I think would be very cool as well. But the problem they have is that they cannot do that because it hurts their bottom line. It's the same with like YouTube. I'm making these types of videos. Maybe I see something else that I want to do, but I don't have the time to focus on that, to properly do that, because that would hurt the videos that people actually want to see. And that's with Sony as well. Like, they want to have the single player games, so they cannot make the exciting live service titles that they could provide. Guerrilla is trying it though, and we will see. I don't want to like talk too long about it. We kind of have talked about this as well before, and yeah, it's gonna be fascinating. I just hope that it won't be your next Suicide Squad or something. That's gonna be a nightmare.
The podcast is gonna be so fun if this ends up being a train wreck, because I'm gonna come on here and I'm gonna be like, yeah, so let's talk about how this is horrible, and Joe Raptor's like trying so hard to be quiet. Oh man,
I have my Horizon shirt on.
That's so funny. That's great. I mean, again, I hope it's really good. I want more good games than bad games in the world. But it's a game nobody really asked for in a franchise that some people do really like, no doubt. But it will be almost certainly a visual downgrade. I mean, there's even alleged leaked multiplayer footage of the game, which seems to, I don't know if that was ever verified, but seems to potentially confirm the art style choices. So I just,
yeah, and like characters Genshin Impact style.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if they announce, I think IROCZ said it in chat, if they announce this big live service game from one of their most preeminent single player developers, when they announce the PS5 Pro, I mean, it very well could be another Concord situation where it's like they open this big showcase with a live service game nobody asked for, like they did with Concord, and it could go over very poorly, especially if it's like it's a Fortnite wrapped Monster Hunter clone in the Horizon franchise. I mean, I can see that going over poorly right now. I hope that they have enough gameplay and they show some stuff that's really encouraging, but you're just like, they're in a tough spot because they're making a game that not really anybody asked for, and It's hard
People
to sell
did.
that.
I mean, people did.
I mean, I think
People
they asked for
want, like-
co-op Horizon. I don't know if they asked
I mean,
for
they
like
did
a
not ask
full
for
live
co-op
service.
Ghost of Tsushima as well, and that was really cool. So
It was cool, but it didn't like break the bank, and it wasn't a standalone game or anything.
They made it standalone afterwards, and I think it did pretty well. At least my views did pretty well, so I think a lot of people played it.
I mean, it's just it
No,
might pop
yeah.
off. I hope it's a new multiplayer obsession because, dear God, I'd like something fresh. But time will tell, and maybe we will
Yeah.
see it within like a month or two.
Next week, 2 weeks from now, most fresh game experience ever. Sad news to round out the show. Meta shutting down Ready at Dawn. Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah, these are the guys that made the Order 1886 and the Lone Echo VR games. They were bought by Meta back in 2020, I believe.
Yeah,
And
when like the whole industry was like, oh, we're gonna make a ton of money. COVID is forever.
Yep, because everybody was like, "Ooh, VR, that's super fun and crazy and cool." And now it just seems like it wasn't making any sense. I actually have the collector's edition of the Order 1886 right above my head. That's what that is. You want to see it?
Yeah. Oh, I remember this statue.
Down.
Whoa.
Look. Oh god. So
Things are breaking. Oh.
This is it. It's a beautiful
wow.
statue. So Galahad. Oh, come on. There you go.
Oh yeah, Sir Galahad.
It's a very good paint. It's very solid. I love dynamic statues in like a big movement and action. It's why like the Assassin's Creed statue I'm not that into, just from Valhalla, because it's like just ever standing on the edge. But with this, it's like the wood is breaking, the tiles are cracking under his feet. It's just a really cool statue. And then they sent it with this, which is like a little box that has some notes and concept art and stuff from the game. And then inside is the little flask.
Oh, I think it takes longer to read everything in that box than to finish the game.
Just about, yeah.
Probably. Because that's I liked it. I thought it was interesting, but I do think this is another one of those games where people are like, I wanted to see a sequel. I don't think the sequel would have sold very well because the game that we had should have been everything that the sequel could have been. Like, this was not a game that they released. It was a showcase title for the PS4.
Yeah.
And it looked awesome. And there was a lot, like, I love the Zeppelin scene, and the graphics are, I think, still are impressive if you look back at it. But like that werewolf in the statue, the QuickTime event, and then the final boss was the same QuickTime event. That was the boss. That was everything. And then he looked out of the city. I'm spoiling this 10-year-old game, and that was the end. And I was like, yeah, let's go. We're getting started.
Yeah, it feels like you finished the prologue and it's the whole game.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree. I mean, the Order
it was sold at full
1886, the
price,
reason I'm kind of fascinated by it is, for one, because I think it came out at a really interesting time in the industry where there was a real pivot towards cinematic narrative games and away from games that purely focused on gameplay first and foremost. And it represented a shift that I think Sony saw a lot of potential in. The game didn't end up being well received or selling particularly well, but you did see Sony start to shift a lot of their efforts in terms of marketing and framing the PS4 console into games that were in the same kind of family as the Order 1886. And furthermore, a lot of the people that worked on the Order 1886 at Ready at Dawn would go on to work at Naughty Dog on things like The Last of Us Part 2, Uncharted 4, or Santa Monica Studio working on the God of War reboots. So a lot of people that made that game and that tech demo, they went and took those skills and that expertise and applied it to some of the most successful games of all time, in the form of those big PlayStation exclusives. So a lot of it started there, and in some ways you could say like the Order 1886 walked so those other games could run, because they kind of laid the foundation for realizing that tech. And wasn't a very good video game, but I do think it was an important
I'm happy it exists.
Yeah.
but I do think people saying, yeah, the sequel would have been so. I'm like, okay, but yeah, I don't know. That this game should have been way more. I felt if I paid full price for that, I would have felt ripped off.
Same.
So,
Same. Yeah, and I think
for
it's
sure.
just it's why I appreciate it as a piece of gaming history. As a product, it was objectively bad.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you could argue that it was good. But Sean says their lead or head texture artist ended up going over to Rockstar on Red Dead Redemption 2. I mean, a lot of the people ended up going and working on some of the biggest games because the talent was top notch. It was just the game didn't come together in a way that made sense. But as a result, they were taken over and they started making VR games. And then a lot of that talent, like I said, left. New VR talent came in. And so I don't know if a sequel would have ever been good, but I appreciate it as a piece of gaming history.
I think it would have been a sequel that would have probably been very good, but I think it would have been a Watch Dogs 2 situation where everyone was like, yeah, I bought the first game. I did not like it. I like the idea, but why would I pay full price again for the sequel? But while I kind of like remember Watch Dogs 2 had really this uphill battle while that game was surprisingly good. So I think that would have been the same here. Like I would have been like, yeah, I paid $60 for this 5-hour experience. You expect me to pay $50 again for? Okay, sure, it's better, but you kind of lost me, I think. But I would have loved to see the sequel. Like if I could live in the timeline, that would be awesome because I would have totally played that. And yeah, I do think it had a lot of going for it. Like I would love Sony to somehow go back to that series for one of their like smaller projects. Like if they're upfront, like this is gonna be a 5-hour game, it's $30. I would be like, yeah, go ahead, give me another one.
I mean, there is the potential that the IP is just tainted, as you alluded to with the Watch Dogs comparison. Yeah. I think a lot of people that like the Order 1886 mainly like the setting and tone and ambiance of it, and of course the production value. But
yeah, maybe
I think the Victorian England setting helps a lot, and it reaffirms another kind of dream game I've had, which I've wanted to see for a while, which would be sort of a mixture of Vampire, the systems there, with the story of a Sweeney Todd set in a Victorian English setting. You could even maybe tie in some Jack the Ripper stuff with it. I think it would pop off. I think people would love it. The idea that like you're fighting these internal urges, and if you embrace them to kill, you become more powerful, and then you can use that for other things. And you're taking down like, you know, the judge, who is very ominous and Snape-like. So I think it could be really good. But anyway, that's just me. That's just me. Anyway, it's a sad day. The studio's been shut down.
Yeah,
they had layoffs.
RIP.
Yeah, they had layoffs last year. The Lone Echo games are good, but I mean, they're VR games. It's just there's only so many people playing VR games actively, and so it doesn't really matter if it's a 10 out of 10. It still probably isn't selling that well. And at some point, the executives of these parent companies are just going to be like, we got to cut 500 jobs. Where are we going to find it? This studio is making.
Yeah, what were they going? Maybe Lone Echo 2 did not pop or whatever, and they were like, yeah, it's not working out anymore.
Yeah,
but it had a huge legacy, same as Volition. Like it makes sense that they have gone, but yeah, it's still sad.
Yeah.
Sorry
to leave you guys on a bummer, but
no, we're gonna end on a high note because our job right here is to get a higher amount of like a higher number of reviews that are 5-star than the concurrent number of players Concord will have 1 week after launch. We're now 211. Remember last week it was 100.
Wasn't it like 180 something?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. We went from 160 69 to like
Giggity.
186 or something, maybe.
Something like
and
that.
And now we're at 211. So you know who you are. You know who you are. If you went to the Spotify mobile app, searched Free Roam, a gaming podcast, in the search tab, and then gave that 5-star review, you know who you are. We appreciate you a lot. Thanks a lot for that. We're still trying to figure out how to get back to the 5 stars. If you're watching live right now, grab your phone, grab the phone of your significant other or of your mother or your father, or steal all the phones in the vicinity.
That guy on the subway you're sitting next to.
Yeah.
Just do what you got to do.
Get it. He will thank you, or she will thank you later, because they now are subscribed and gave a 5-star review to the most deserving people on the internet.
Literally. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
We are the best. So.
Yeah. And nobody says it, so we have to say it.
Yeah.
In order to.
Yeah. People say the opposite quite frequently, so we just have to.
And that's why every time I wake up, when I feel like kind of down, I just go to the free roam Spotify page at 4.9.
There we go.
Of the 5. Like
Validated.
4.9
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, oh wow. So yeah, that would help us out. Thanks a lot for that. We will check back every week, and then of course see the number go up. Yeah. Next week is another week. That's all I got.
Yeah.
No. The week after that though is Wukong, and the week after that is Star Wars, and the week after that is Astrobot. The week after that is Space Marine. So we're kind of entering a summer Christmas period. Gamescom will be here. So we have a lot to discuss. You want to keep it locked to the show. Keep it locked to our channels, of course. Gaming is back, as Ramon is saying. Summer, Christmas, yeah. It's going to be crazy. Don't forget Dragon Ball. I already forgot about it.
It's gone. It's out. Yeah.
It's gone, yeah.
Anyway, everybody.
Sparking zero interest.
Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you next time, everybody. Much love.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.